The warning lights bathed the survey room in angry red as Commander Rial stared at the data streaming across his screens. 23 years of exploring the galaxy had taught him to read planetary classifications like a recipe for disaster, and this one made his blood run cold. The third planet from the yellow star showed every sign of being a death trap wrapped in a thin atmosphere. "Tell me this is wrong," he muttered, his four eyes blinking in sequence as he processed the impossible. Readings. The planet's gravity alone would crush most civilized beings. Its weather systems generated storms that could level cities. Massive plates of rock ground against each other beneath the surface, creating earthquakes that would register as planetary catastrophes on any reasonable world. Science Officer Nala floated nearby, her crystalline body reflecting the harsh light, as she manipulated holographic displays with delicate precision. Her species had evolved in the gentle caves of Silicon worlds, where the greatest danger was a mild temperature shift. This planet would shatter her molecular structure in minutes. "The readings are correct, Commander," she said, her voice carrying the musical quality of her crystal-born people. "But there's something else. The electromagnetic signatures suggest a technological civilization. They have satellites in orbit and energy patterns that indicate advanced industry." Rial felt his stomach drop. A civilization on a Class 13 Deathworld meant only one thing in galactic history. The species would be incredibly dangerous, probably violent beyond measure, and definitely too unstable for peaceful contact. Every textbook case study warned against approaching such worlds. The ship's navigator, Bem, rippled his tentacles nervously as he processed the stellar charts. His aquatic homeworld of Aquatos had prepared him for fluid dynamics and three-dimensional thinking, but the chaotic orbital mechanics of this system made him uncomfortable. Too many variables, too many ways for things to go catastrophically wrong. "Commander, the approach vectors are problematic," Bem reported, his voice carrying the wet undertones of his species. "This system is full of debris. Asteroid belts, comet trails, and the gravitational fields are constantly shifting. It's like trying to navigate through a cosmic blender." Dr. Ten, the expedition's xenobiologist, looked up from his biological scanners with growing alarm. His herbivorous species from the peaceful meadows of Verdania had never encountered anything more dangerous than seasonal pollen storms. The biological diversity readings from the third planet made no sense to his careful, methodical mind. "This is unprecedented," Ten said, his leaf-like appendages rustling with anxiety. "The biodiversity index is off our scales. Most Class 13 worlds support maybe 50 to 100 complex species. This planet shows millions. The evolutionary pressure should have created a handful of apex predators, not this explosion of life." The crew gathered around the central display as more data poured in. The planet's day cycle was reasonable, but its axial tilt created seasonal variations that would be considered extreme climate disasters on most worlds. Massive ice caps advanced and retreated regularly, covering and uncovering vast land masses. The oceans showed chemical compositions that would be toxic to most galactic life. "Look at this atmospheric analysis," Nala continued, highlighting sections of the data with shimmering light patterns. 21% oxygen. That's practically explosive. Most civilized worlds maintain 12 to 14% for safety. And the pressure readings suggest their atmosphere extends much higher than it should for a planet this size. Rial studied the energy signatures more carefully. The electromagnetic patterns showed not just technology, but incredibly sophisticated technology. Radio waves, microwave transmissions, and something that looked like primitive quantum communications. These beings had developed advanced science while living on a world that should have killed them before they discovered fire. "There's something else," Bem added, his tentacles dancing across his navigation controls. "The magnetic field readings are unusual. This planet has an incredibly strong magnetosphere, much more powerful than needed for cosmic radiation protection. It's like the planet itself is armored." The implications hit Rial like a physical blow. A strong magnetic field meant the planet's core was incredibly active, generating massive amounts of internal energy. Volcanic activity would be constant. Seismic events would be routine. The very forces that protected the planet from space radiation would make the surface incredibly unstable. "We need to reconsider this mission," Dr. Ten said quietly. "Every protocol suggests we should classify this system as hazardous and maintain a safe distance. If a species evolved on such a hostile world, they would have to be incredibly aggressive to survive. The psychological profiles alone suggest we should avoid contact." But Rial found himself fascinated despite the danger. The energy signatures showed not just survival, but thriving civilization. These beings had not just endured their hostile world, they had apparently mastered it. The satellite networks showed global communication systems. The industrial signatures suggested they were manufacturing complex materials and possibly even considering space exploration. "Set course for the outer system," Rial finally decided. "We'll maintain maximum distance and observe. If these beings are as dangerous as their world suggests, we need to understand them before they develop interstellar travel. The Galactic Confederation needs to know what we're dealing with." As the ship adjusted course toward the distant yellow star, the crew prepared for what might be the most dangerous first contact mission in galactic history. The beings on the third planet had somehow not just survived, but apparently flourished on a world that would kill most civilized species within hours. Nala continued processing the incoming data streams, her crystalline mind working through possibilities that seemed to defy everything they knew about planetary development and species evolution. "Commander, there's one more thing. The radio transmissions we're picking up suggest they have a name for their world. They call it Earth." The name meant nothing to the galactic databases, but something about it felt ominous to Rial. A species that had survived the ultimate death world and learned to call it home. As they approached the outer reaches of the system, he wondered if they were about to encounter the most dangerous beings in the galaxy, or something far more extraordinary than their classifications had ever imagined. The massive gas giant Jupiter provided perfect cover as the alien survey ship settled into a stable orbit. Its sensors focused on the small blue world spinning deeper in the system. For 3 days, they had been intercepting radio and television. Signals from Earth and what they discovered challenged everything the galactic community believed about civilized behavior. Dr. Ten adjusted his viewing screen for the 3rd time that morning, unable to believe what he was seeing. His peaceful meadow world had never prepared him for the images streaming from Earth's communication networks. Humans were deliberately throwing themselves from perfectly safe aircraft, trusting thin fabric parachutes to save their lives. They called it entertainment. "This makes no sense," he whispered, his leaf-like appendages trembling as he watched footage of something called extreme skiing. Humans were racing down steep mountain slopes at deadly speeds, launching themselves off cliffs and somehow landing safely in deep snow. They're seeking danger for pleasure. No rational species does this. Nala floated nearby, her crystalline form flickering with confused light patterns as she processed human sporting events. Her people had developed complex mathematics and beautiful art forms over millions of years of peaceful evolution. Violence existed only in their ancient historical records, from before they learned to live in harmony with their environment. "Look at this combat sport they call boxing," she said, projecting holographic images for the crew to see. 2 humans enter a confined space and deliberately strike each other until one cannot continue. Thousands of other humans gather to watch this violence, and they appear to enjoy it. Commander Rial found himself studying human military history with growing unease. His own species had evolved beyond warfare centuries ago, learning that cooperation yielded better results than conflict. But humans seemed to have perfected the art of organized violence while simultaneously developing incredible technology and complex social structures. "Their military tactics are sophisticated," he reported to his crew. They coordinate massive groups across vast distances, using complex strategies that would challenge our best tactical computers. But more disturbing is how they treat this as normal. Children learn about famous battles in their schools. The ship's communications officer, a gentle being named Zell, whose species communicated through harmonic frequencies, was monitoring human music and finding it equally disturbing. Where galactic music focused on peaceful harmonies that promoted calm meditation, human music often featured aggressive rhythms and lyrics about struggle, competition, and overcoming impossible odds. They have entire musical genres dedicated to rebellion and conflict, Zell reported, his harmonic voice carrying undertones of worry. They sing about fighting systems, breaking rules, and never surrendering. It's like their entire culture celebrates resistance to authority. But it was the human approach to their planet's natural disasters that truly shocked the observers. Bem had been tracking Earth's weather patterns, watching in horror as massive storm systems that would devastate any civilized world moved across human population centers. Instead of fleeing, humans seem to have developed elaborate systems for surviving these catastrophes. They build structures designed to flex during earthquakes, Bem reported, his tentacles writhing with anxiety. Their cities are constructed assuming regular disasters. They have emergency response teams that deliberately fly into the most dangerous storms to collect data. They call them hurricane hunters. The crew watched footage of human emergency responders racing toward disasters that sent other species fleeing. When volcanoes erupted, humans established observation posts to study the lava flows. When tsunamis struck, they rebuilt in the same locations but with better warning systems. When tornadoes tore through their communities, they improved their shelters and developed better prediction methods. They don't avoid danger, Dr. Ten observed with growing amazement. They adapt to it. Every catastrophe becomes a learning experience. Nala had been analyzing human physical capabilities, comparing them to known galactic species databases. The results were disturbing for entirely different reasons. Their bone density is 3 times galactic average. Their cardiovascular systems can operate efficiently under extreme stress. Their immune systems are incredibly robust, capable of fighting off infections that would kill most species. And their reaction times, added Bem, who had been studying human transportation systems. They operate vehicles at speeds that would be suicidal for most beings, making split-second decisions in traffic patterns that look like controlled chaos. Their entire transportation network assumes reflexes and judgment capabilities far beyond galactic norms. The most unsettling discovery came when they intercepted human entertainment programming. Humans created fictional stories about facing impossible odds and winning through determination and cleverness. Their heroes were rarely the strongest or most intelligent, but always the most persistent. They have a concept called the underdog, Commander Rial noted, reviewing human storytelling patterns. They admire individuals or groups that face overwhelming odds and refuse to surrender. Their most popular stories feature ordinary humans accomplishing extraordinary things through sheer determination. Zell had been monitoring human news broadcasts and found another disturbing pattern. When disasters strike, they don't just focus on the tragedy. They immediately begin reporting on recovery efforts and human resilience. They have phrases like bounce back stronger and never give up that appear constantly in their communication. The crew spent hours watching human children at play, expecting to find the peaceful, protected youth that characterized most civilized species. Instead, they found young humans engaged in complex competitive games, learning teamwork through structured conflict, and being deliberately challenged to develop problem-solving skills. Their education system includes something called physical education, Dr. Ten reported with amazement. They require their young to engage in strenuous physical activity and competitive sports. They're literally training their children to be stronger and more competitive. As their 4th day of observation ended, the crew gathered to discuss their findings. Every piece of data painted the same picture. Humans had not just survived on a deadly world, they had developed a culture that celebrated the very traits that surviving such a world would require. "They're not monsters," Commander Rial concluded, though his voice carried deep uncertainty. "There's something unprecedented, a species that turned the hostility of their world into cultural strengths. They compete because competition made them stronger. They take risks because risk-taking led to innovation. They never surrender because surrender meant extinction." The question now was whether such a species could ever integrate peacefully with the galactic community, or whether their Earth-forged nature made them too dangerous for civilized contact. The answer to that question was about to become urgent, as their sensors detected an incoming solar storm that would compromise their ship's cloaking systems within hours. The solar flare warning came too late. Commander Rial watched helplessly as his ship's cloaking systems fluctuated wildly, the electromagnetic pulse from Earth's star wreaking havoc on their carefully calibrated stealth technology. What should have been a routine solar event for the hardy humans below was proving catastrophic for the alien vessel's delicate systems. "Cloaking is down to 40%, reported Navigator Bem, his tentacles dancing frantically across emergency controls. "We're partially visible across multiple electromagnetic spectra. If any human sensor systems are active in this region, they'll detect us." The timing couldn't have been worse. In their effort to gather more detailed data about human society, they had moved closer to Earth, positioning themselves near the orbital path where humans had established a permanent space station. The International Space Station was directly below them, and their failing cloak was making them increasingly visible to human detection systems. Aboard the ISS, astronaut Tom Bradley was conducting routine maintenance on the station's communications array when his instruments began showing anomalous readings. 23 years of engineering experience and 5 years as an astronaut had taught him to trust his equipment, even when it showed him something impossible. "Houston, I'm getting some unusual readings on the sensor array," he radioed to Mission Control, his voice carrying the calm professionalism that characterized human space operations. "There's something large showing up on multiple sensors, roughly 2 kilometers off our starboard side." The response from Houston was immediate but confused. "ISS, we're not showing anything on our tracking systems. Can you verify your readings?" Tommy ran a complete diagnostic check on his systems while maintaining visual observation of the area where his sensors indicated the object should be. The readings were consistent across radar, infrared, and electromagnetic sensors. Something was definitely there, something big enough to be a significant space vehicle. "Houston, diagnostics confirm all systems are functioning normally. I'm seeing intermittent visual confirmation as well. It's like something is trying to stay invisible but not quite succeeding." On the alien ship, panic was spreading through the crew as they realized the implications. Not only had they been detected, but the human response was completely different from what they expected. Instead of military alerts or defensive actions, the humans seemed genuinely curious and concerned. "The human is attempting communication," reported Communications Officer Zell, his harmonic voice tight with worry. "He's not treating us as a threat. He's following what appears to be standard protocols for assisting a vessel in distress." Dr. 10 was monitoring human communication networks, watching in amazement as word of the detection spread through human space agencies. Instead of panic or aggressive responses, humans were mobilizing their resources to investigate and potentially assist the unknown vessel. "This is unprecedented," 10 reported. "Most species would either flee or prepare for combat when encountering an unknown vessel. The humans are organizing a first contact protocol and preparing emergency assistance options." Commander Rial found himself in an impossible situation. Galactic protocols demanded they avoid detection at all costs when studying a potentially dangerous species. But their failing systems were making concealment increasingly difficult, and the humans' helpful attitude was creating unexpected complications. The situation became critical when their main navigation computer detected incoming debris. A routine micrometeorite shower was approaching, the kind of event that humans dealt with regularly by adjusting their satellites and space stations. For the aliens, with their damaged systems and unfamiliarity with Earth's chaotic orbital environment, it represented a deadly threat. "Multiple impacts incoming," Bem reported, his voice rising with panic. "Our navigation systems can't compensate properly with the cloaking system drawing power from maneuvering thrusters." The first micrometeorites struck the ship's hull with impacts that would barely scratch human spacecraft, but caused significant damage to the aliens' more delicate technology. Their main engines went offline. Backup power systems fluctuated, and worst of all, their altitude control failed. "We're falling toward the planet," Rial announced, his voice steady despite the crisis. "All crew to emergency stations. Prepare for atmospheric entry." Tom Bradley watched in shock as the mysterious vessel suddenly became fully visible, its hull glowing with what appeared to be emergency lighting. The ship was clearly in distress, beginning an uncontrolled descent toward Earth's atmosphere. "Houston, the unknown vessel is in immediate danger. It's beginning atmospheric entry without apparent control. We need to coordinate emergency response immediately." The response from Houston demonstrated exactly what the aliens had been observing about human nature. Instead of treating the situation as a potential threat, humans immediately mobilized their emergency response systems. Weather satellites tracked the ship's descent path, ground-based radars calculated impact trajectories, and rescue teams began deploying toward the projected crash site. "ISS, we're coordinating with Canadian Search and Rescue," came the voice from Houston. "The trajectory suggests impact in the Rocky Mountains region. Emergency teams are already mobilizing despite the severe weather conditions in that area." As the alien ship plunged through Earth's atmosphere, the crew experienced firsthand why their planet was classified as a death world. The atmospheric entry that human spacecraft handled routinely became a nightmare of crushing forces and heat that their systems weren't designed to handle. "Hull temperature exceeding safety parameters," Nala reported, her crystalline form flickering, with stress patterns. "Atmospheric pressure is beyond our structural tolerances. The ship's emergency systems activated automatically, deploying protective fields and shock dampeners designed for gentle landings on civilized worlds. They were completely inadequate for the violent forces of an Earth atmospheric entry and emergency landing. Through their sensors, they could see the human response continuing to mobilize. Emergency teams were moving toward their projected crash site despite weather conditions that would ground most galactic species' aircraft. The humans were preparing to risk their own lives to rescue beings they had never seen and knew nothing about. "They're coming to help us," Zell reported with wonder, in his harmonic voice. "Even though they don't know who we are or whether we're dangerous, they're mobilizing rescue operations." The ship struck the mountainside with an impact that would have been fatal without their emergency systems. Snow and rock cascaded around them as they slid down the slope, finally coming to rest in a small valley surrounded by peaks that reached above the clouds. As emergency systems assessed the damage, the crew realized they were alive but trapped on the surface of the most dangerous world any of them had ever encountered. Outside, the temperature was below freezing, the air pressure was crushing, and they were surrounded by terrain that would challenge even the most hardy galactic species. But through their communication systems, they could hear human voices coordinating, rescue efforts, teams preparing to venture into the deadly mountain environment to reach them. The beings they had classified as too dangerous for contact were risking everything to save them. The storm that would have been classified as a major natural disaster on most civilized worlds was just another winter day in the Canadian Rockies for Anna Walsh. She adjusted her equipment pack and checked the weather readings one more time, before leading her mountain rescue team up the treacherous slope toward the crash site. "Wind gusts up to 80 kilometers per hour, temperature minus 25 Celsius, visibility less than 50 meters. She reported into her radio, her breath creating small clouds in the frigid air. "Standard winter conditions for this elevation. We'll reach the site in approximately 2 hours." Her team of 6 moved through the snow with practiced efficiency, using techniques developed over decades of rescuing people from one of Earth's most unforgiving environments. They navigated around crevasses that could swallow a building, crossed ice bridges that would collapse under excessive weight, and maintained steady progress despite conditions that would paralyze most galactic civilizations. Inside the crashed alien vessel, the crew watched in amazement through their external sensors as the human rescue team approached. Dr. Ten monitored their biological readings with growing astonishment as the humans maintained normal heart rates and steady body temperatures despite being exposed to conditions that would kill most known species within minutes. Their metabolism is incredible, he reported to his crewmates. They're generating internal heat efficiently enough to maintain function in sub-freezing temperatures. Their cardiovascular systems are operating normally under extreme physical stress. These readings suggest they're actually comfortable in these conditions. Commander Rial studied the approaching humans through the ship's cameras, noting how they moved across the dangerous terrain with confidence born from extensive experience. They weren't just surviving the mountain environment, they were mastering it. Look at their coordination, he observed. They're sharing the workload automatically, taking turns breaking trail through deep snow, supporting each other across difficult passages. This kind of teamwork suggests they regularly face life-threatening situations together. The rescue team reached the crash site just as another wave of the storm struck, bringing winds that howled across the mountain peaks and snow that reduced visibility to almost zero. Instead of seeking shelter, the humans immediately began assessing the situation and planning their approach to the alien vessel. Okay, people, we've got a situation unlike anything in the training manuals, Anna announced to her team. The vessel appears to be of unknown origin, possibly not human, but standard rescue protocols apply. Lives are at risk, and that's all that matters right now. Dr. Mark Rivers, the team's medical specialist, began unpacking equipment designed for treating hypothermia, altitude sickness, and trauma injuries. His background included emergency medicine in some of Earth's most challenging environments, from Antarctic research stations to high-altitude climbing expeditions. Whatever's inside that ship, they chose a hell of a place to crash, he said matter-of-factly. These conditions will kill most Earth life forms within hours. If they're not adapted for this environment, we need to get them stabilized quickly. The aliens watched in fascination as the humans approached their ship without apparent fear. Most galactic species would have sent automated probes or demanded extensive safety protocols before approaching an unknown vessel. The humans simply began looking for a way to help. Anna located what appeared to be an emergency hatch and began working to open it using techniques adapted from vehicle rescue operations. Her team established a perimeter to monitor for avalanche danger while maintaining communication with base camp and preparing emergency medical equipment. "We've got the hatch open," she reported. "I can see at least 4 beings inside, but they don't look human. Repeat, we have non-human survivors requiring immediate assistance." The first face-to-face contact between humans and aliens happened, not in a controlled laboratory or diplomatic facility, but in a crashed spaceship during a mountain blizzard. Anna found herself looking at Commander Rial, whose 4 eyes blinked in sequence as he struggled to process the reality of meeting a human. "Can you understand me?" Anna asked, her voice calm and professional despite the historic nature of the moment. "We're here to help. Are you injured?" Rial activated his universal translator, a device designed for eventual contact with unknown species. "We understand. Our ship is damaged. My crew needs medical assistance. The environmental conditions are beyond our tolerance." Anna immediately began coordinating with her team, treating the situation as a complex rescue operation rather than a first contact scenario. "Mark, get in here. We've got multiple casualties suffering from what looks like environmental exposure and possible crush injuries from the crash." Dr. Rivers entered the ship and immediately began adapting his medical knowledge to treat beings unlike anything he had encountered. Nala's crystalline structure was showing stress fractures that reminded him of geological formations under pressure. He began treating her with techniques borrowed from materials science and crystallography. Your friend here has structural damage, similar to what we see in stressed crystal formations, he explained to Rial while working. I'm going to stabilize the fractures using a technique we use for repairing damaged equipment in extreme cold. The aliens were amazed by human adaptability. Dr. Rivers was applying principles from completely different fields to provide medical care for beings he had never seen before. His approach was intuitive, creative, and surprisingly effective. Navigator. Bem was suffering from what appeared to be pressure-related injuries. His aquatic physiology was struggling with the thin mountain air and crushing atmospheric pressure. Anna and her team rigged an improvised pressure chamber using their emergency equipment and knowledge gained from treating decompression injuries. We're going to get you stabilized and then transport you to a better environment, Anna assured him. These mountains are challenging even for us, and we grew up here. Communications Officer Zell was conscious but struggling with the psychological impact of being on such a hostile world. His harmonic communication method was being disrupted by the wind and atmospheric conditions. Lisa Chang, the team's communications specialist, began working with him to establish clear contact using basic mathematics and physics principles. Numbers are universal, Lisa explained, showing Zell simple mathematical relationships on her tablet computer. Let's start with basics and build from there. As the rescue operation continued, the aliens began to understand something profound about human nature. These beings weren't just surviving on their death world, they had developed their entire civilization around the assumption that life was dangerous and required constant cooperation and innovation. The rescue team worked through the night, maintaining life support for the aliens while coordinating with base camp for extraction. They shared their food, their emergency heating systems, and their shelter without hesitation, treating the aliens as fellow beings in need rather than potential threats. You risk your lives for strangers, Commander Rial observed as Anna checked on his crew throughout the night. Anna looked at him with genuine confusion. Of course we do. That's what people do when others need help. How else would civilization work? By morning, the storm had cleared enough for helicopter evacuation. As the human rescue team prepared to transport the aliens to safety, Rial realized they had learned something more important than any scientific data. They had discovered that the most dangerous world in known space had produced not monsters, but heroes. The secure medical facility nestled in the Colorado mountains had been hastily converted from a high-altitude research station into the galaxy's first diplomatic meeting room. Commander Rial stood beside a large window, his 4 eyes taking in the view of snow-capped peaks that stretched to the horizon, terrain that still made him feel dizzy with vertigo, despite 2 weeks of recovery. Dr. Patricia Moore entered the room carrying a steaming cup of coffee, the dark liquid producing vapor in the thin mountain air. She had been chosen to lead the human side of first contact discussions, partly because of her expertise in xenobiology, but mostly because she had spent her career working in extreme environments and was comfortable with the impossible. "How are you feeling today?" she asked Rial, settling into a chair that had been adjusted to accommodate his different physiology. "The medical team says your crew is recovering well from the atmospheric adjustment issues." Rial gestured toward the mountain vista with one of his delicate limbs. "Your world continues to amaze and terrify us in equal measure. Yesterday, your weather service reported that conditions were pleasant for hiking. Yet the temperature readings would constitute a severe environmental emergency on most civilized worlds." Dr. Moore laughed, a sound that still startled the aliens with its apparent lack of concern for their situation. "Wait until you see summer in Death Valley. We have tourists who travel there specifically because it's one of the hottest places on the planet. We think it's fun." General Robert Hayes joined them, carrying files that contained humanity's first attempt at explaining their civilization to beings from beyond Earth. His military background had prepared him for impossible situations, but nothing had quite prepared him for explaining to aliens why humans considered their Deathworld home to be perfectly normal. "Commander Rial, we've prepared some information about human society that might help you understand us better," the general said, settling into his chair with the ease of someone accustomed to briefing world leaders. "But first, we'd like to understand more about how other species classify worlds like Earth." Rial activated a holographic display that showed the galactic classification system, with Earth's data highlighted in warning colors that made it look like a cosmic hazard zone. "Your world rates as Class 13 on our habitability scale. This classification is reserved for planets so hostile that they should not support complex life. Most surveyed Class 13 worlds are barren or support only primitive extremophile organisms." "What makes a world Class 13?" Dr. Moore asked, genuinely curious about the alien perspective on her home planet. "Extreme gravitational fields, violent weather systems, seismic instability, dangerous radiation exposure, toxic atmospheric compositions, and aggressive biological competition," Rial explained, highlighting each factor on his display. "Earth exceeds dangerous thresholds in every category. Your gravity alone would crush citizens from most galactic civilizations." General Hayes studied the classification data with the same analytical approach he brought to military intelligence. "So, in galactic terms, we're living on the equivalent of an active war zone?" "Worse," Rial replied. "War zones can be avoided or resolved. Your planetary conditions are permanent and universal. Every day on Earth involves survival challenges that would be considered extreme emergencies elsewhere." Dr. Moore opened her laptop and began showing Rial examples of normal human activities. Video footage of children playing in playgrounds, families enjoying beach vacations, and people participating in weekend hiking trips. To human eyes, it looked like ordinary recreation. To Rial, it looked like survival training. "Your young are taught to navigate complex physical challenges from an early age," he observed, watching footage of children climbing playground equipment that would be dangerous obstacle courses on most worlds. "This is military-grade physical conditioning disguised as entertainment. We call it playing," Dr. Moore explained. "Children naturally seek out physical challenges because it helps them develop strength, coordination, and problem-solving skills. We don't think of it as training, just as natural development." General Hayes brought up documentation of human emergency response systems, showing how communities prepared for and responded to natural disasters. Hurricane evacuation plans, earthquake building codes, wildfire management strategies, and flood control systems. What humans considered basic civic planning, the aliens recognized as sophisticated survival protocols. "You've built your entire civilization around the assumption that catastrophic events are normal and manageable," Rial noted with amazement. "Most galactic societies are designed to avoid all possible dangers. Your society is designed to face dangers and overcome them." The conversation was interrupted by the arrival of Nala, whose crystalline structure had been stabilized using human materials science techniques. She moved carefully in Earth's gravity, but her curious nature had driven her to explore human knowledge databases. "I've been studying your information networks," she announced, her musical voice carrying excitement despite her physical discomfort. "Humans have a concept that doesn't translate properly into galactic languages. You have thousands of words and phrases that essentially mean making the impossible possible through determination." Dr. Moore smiled. "We don't really think of things as impossible, just challenging. There's usually a way to solve any problem if you're creative enough and willing to work hard enough." "That's exactly what I mean," Nala continued. "Most galactic languages have clear distinctions between possible and impossible. Human language treats everything as potentially achievable with sufficient effort. Your word impossible is mostly used for emphasis, not as an actual limit." Dr. Ten joined the discussion, his leaf-like appendages rustling with the excitement of scientific discovery. "I've been analyzing human biological adaptations, and they're extraordinary. Your species has evolved capabilities that most civilizations achieve only through technological enhancement." He displayed comparative biological data showing human physical capabilities alongside other galactic species. Human endurance, adaptability, and stress tolerance were off the galactic charts. Your cardiovascular systems can operate efficiently, across a wider range of conditions than most species can tolerate, even with life support technology, Ten explained. Your immune systems are robust enough to handle biological threats that would devastate other civilizations. Your psychological resilience allows you to function under stress levels that would incapacitate most beings. General Hayes leaned back in his chair, processing the implications. "So you're telling us that Earth made us into something unusual, by galactic standards?" "More than unusual," Commander Rial replied. "Unprecedented. We're going to have to create an entirely new classification system. Earth isn't just a Class 13 Deathworld. It's something we've never encountered before." "What will you call it?" Dr. Moore asked. Rial looked out at the mountain peaks again, then back at the humans who had risked their lives to rescue complete strangers in conditions that would be lethal to most galactic citizens. "Class Terra, the first planet known to Wei. Produce a species that doesn't just survive the impossible, but treats it as normal and uses it as a foundation for creating something remarkable." As the day concluded, both species had reached a profound understanding. The aliens had learned that the most dangerous worlds don't always produce the most dangerous species, but rather the most extraordinary ones. And humans had learned that their everyday normal was actually cosmic-level exceptional. The Galactic Confederation would soon discover what happened when a species that considered death worlds to be home decided to explore the stars. But for now, in a research station high in the Rocky Mountains, two civilizations shared coffee and contemplated a universe that had just become far more interesting than either had imagined possible.